All right, let's dive into the incredibly complex role of Joseph Stalin during the Second World War. Based on these historical notes, we're going to see how this one man went from being an aggressor, literally carving up countries with Hitler, to an ally fighting on what became the war's absolute deadliest front.
So right off the bat, we have to ask, was Stalin an aggressor or an ally? And the thing is, the answer is complicated. Because at different points in the war, he was actually both. And that contradiction right there is what defined his role and really what shaped the fate of millions of people.
To understand his actions during the war, we've got to rewind a little. Before all the fighting started, one man was already in total, absolute control of the Soviet Union. So who was Joseph Stalin really, and how did he get to be the sole ruler?
Stalin wasn't just a leader. The notes we have describe him as a totalitarian communist dictator. And that word, totalitarian, that's the key. It means he had complete and utter control over everything, the state, the people, which is pretty critical context for all the decisions he's about to make.
So how did he get that power? Well, his path was pretty direct. After Vladimir Lenin, the first leader of the Soviet Revolution, died, Stalin basically outmaneuvered everyone to take full control of the USSR. So his authority was locked in long before the first shots of World War II were even fired in Europe.
Now, here's where it gets interesting. His first major act of the war wasn't about defense at all, and for a lot of people, this is a real surprise. We're talking about the invasion of Poland.
One half. Just look at that. This one simple fraction represents Stalin's opening move in the entire war, a move that was only possible because of a secret deal he made with his supposed #1 enemy.
Yep, as Germany invaded Poland from the west, the USSR invaded from the east, basically splitting the country right down the middle. And this is a super important point. At the start of the war, the Soviet Union was not a defender. It was an aggressor, working hand in hand with Hitler's Germany as part of their cynical non-aggression pact.
You know, a note in our source material just sums it up perfectly. Stalin gets away with it. Think about it. While Britain and France declared war on Germany for invading Poland, the Soviet Union faced nothing. For his part in conquering an entire country, Stalin faced zero immediate consequences.
But an alliance like that, an alliance of convenience between two dictators, it was never going to last. And what happened next was a moment of shocking betrayal that would completely reshape the entire war.
I mean, the reversal here is just absolute. One minute, Stalin is invading Poland as Germany's partner in crime. And the very next, Hitler completely tears up their non-aggression pact and launches a massive, surprise invasion of the Soviet Union. In that single instant, Stalin's role is flipped on its head, from aggressor to victim.
And the consequence of that betrayal? It was immediate, and it was absolutely catastrophic. It opened up a new, sprawling, and almost unbelievably brutal theater of war.
It became known simply as the Eastern Front. And look, this wasn't just another battlefield. It was the decisive theater of the war in Europe. The conflict here was on a scale that's hard to even imagine, with horrific casualties, and it's ultimately where the German war machine would be blood dry.
The fighting just raged across this vast territory, but it was centered on a few key cities. You had Leningrad, which was besieged for almost 900 days, leading to unimaginable starvation. You had Moscow, the capital itself, where the German advance was finally stopped by a brutal winter and just desperate resistance. And then Stalingrad, the savage, citywide battle that became the turning point of the entire war.
So, as we pull back a little, how do we make sense of all this incredible sequence of events? Let's just quickly summarize Stalin's chaotic and constantly shifting role throughout the war.
Okay, let's just trace his journey. He starts by grabbing absolute power. Then he enters the war as an aggressor, taking half of Poland. Then he's betrayed by Germany, instantly becoming a victim. And finally, he emerges as the leader of this massive defensive war on the Eastern Front, forced into an uneasy alliance with the West to defeat a common enemy.
And all of this leaves us with one final big question. When you consider all the evidence, the cynical pact with Hitler, the land grab in Poland, and the brutal but ultimately successful defense of his country, was Stalin a master strategist, a ruthless opportunist, or was he simply both?